You just wouldn't believe how many regrets I've got about this problem. My dad, years and years ago though, said to me that the man who never made a mistake never made anything. That's blimmin' true, that. I've made quite a few things down the years. Stuff that I'm really proud of too. So I'm going to fix this, and I'm going to fix it right. He did say to me, we were driving down Mosslins Drive, and I was only a young lad, and there was a chap who was trying to get an engine out of his car, and he'd got 3 pieces of scaffolding tube kind of chained together, and he had I think it was a winch of some description, and he was literally lifting the engine out of his car. And my dad was admiring him for his tenacity, for his desert engineering, and he said, you know, there's a guy who's really determined to get that engine out and to fix it himself. So down the years I've done the same kind of thing. I know it was my own fault, I'm stupid, but you should be able to get a chance to redeem yourself in life. So that's what I'm going to do. Hello everybody. Well, I'm back in the shed after my sleepless night of regrets. I know you'll all get in the comments and tell me what a fool I am. But honestly, you won't be able to say anything that I haven't said to myself. So I'm going to make a mandrel, and I'm going to clamp the casing back into its original shape, V-groove it and weld it. It's going to require me to cut this huge piece of bar, get it in the lathe. So let's get started. Well, I'm glad I've got a shop saw for doing a job like that. Okay, it's not very square, but it doesn't matter. So that must be the low point. I've moved it the wrong way. All this is going to be V'd out, and we're going to push it back against the mandrel, which will be the size of the bearing -2 thou. And we're going to push it in several places just to make sure it stays the right shape. Can it be repaired? And I think it can, so I'm going to try at the very least. It's a product spot. It's Jane. Hello. Tea's ready. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, everybody. This is the plan. So we've relieved all the stress that I put into it when I cracked the thing simply by cutting back the crack. That'll be able to get some good penetration on that when I weld it. But the big plan here is this boss here. I'm going to just try and pinch it on the mandrel by having a couple of lugs welded on temporarily with a bit of threaded bar. Little collet and a nut on either end, and then that way I'll be able to pinch this gap together. The bearing surface on the mandrel is 40 thou undersize, so what I should be able to do is just encourage it towards that shape It won't be round, but it'll be somewhere near. And then, because I've kept the mandrel on the 4-jaw chuck, I should be able to get these 2 lugs onto a bracket, onto the apron of the lathe, be able to line bore that bearing back to size and hopefully round. So that's the plan, to put that on the bed of the lathe, and of course I'll be able to line bore by just moving that along. It sounds like a plan. Doesn't sound like an easy one, but it sounds like a plan. Okay, let's get on with it, shall we? Right, let's have a little look, see how they'll go together. Let's work our way out of cutting this, shall we? I used to like having a drink whilst I was working in here. If indeed you could call it working. There's so many opportunities. Because I've been leathered. Four brackets, 2 barrel bolts, nuts, 2 barrel nuts will come out of that on the lathe, a little bit of stud iron, some collets just to get out of space between the brackets, and that'll be welded there with just one good tack on the end of each lug. So I've got to make sure they fit the curve properly. I might even just put a lower radius in that corner. All good fun. So because we've got a thread in that battle nut and a clearance hole in that one, we need some kind of tube to lift the nut out from between the 2 webs of these lugs here. So thin walled. I wonder if I've got a bit of tube that might do the trick already. Right. I must remind you of the old adage, you know, the chap who was very depressed and he went to the doctors and the doctor said, you know, we've tried everything with you. Why don't you take a trip to the Isle of Skye, and if you go to the harbour there, you'll meet a man called Bobby the Bike Builder. If you talk to him, he'll put things into perspective for you. So off this chap goes to the Isle of Skye, and there, sitting on a bollard in the harbour, is a chap called Bobby the Bike Builder. And of course, he goes straight up to him and says, my doctor has asked me to come here and speak to you in order to get a perspective on life. So what can you do to help me? He says, well, see all those houses over there on the other side and up the hill? 74 houses there are. I built all but one of them. But do they call me Bobby the House Builder? No, they don't. And see all those boats in the harbour? 13 of them, and I built 10. But do they call me Bobby the Boat Builder? No, they don't. But you shag one BSA gearbox. Anyway, I do believe that in the past I might not have made that same mistake. I've rebuilt a Triumph engine, pressed in main bearings, and I think the funnel of possibilities, just all sorts of things piling up in there that were the wrong things, you know, like being tired, poor judgment. I think I've mentioned it in a previous statement, but they all funneled down into this kind of disaster zone, and the only thing that could happen then was disaster. So, you know, if nothing else, I'll be able to say that I've learned a lot. I hope some of you out there will appreciate me making a mistake for you. It might just help you out. So on that note, we're going to get on with repairing the damage. I'm going to show you the little turnbuckle device that I've made to bring the crack back together and to hopefully put the bearing housing into a slightly undersized position when I weld it, and it'll hold it there nice and steady. And then the purpose of that is that when I come along with the line bore, I'll be able to put it back to the correct tolerance. I don't think a couple of thou here or there is going to make much difference, but I must get the bearing to A, seal, and B, run true. So those are the considerations, and if nothing else, it's making me think, you know, it's getting my creative juices going again. So I told you we'd go along for the ride, didn't I? And on that note, let's get on with it. Well, I'm finally at the point where I have a mandrel which is on centre. I have a plate with a line that is square across. I've got my block square in place. I've got my weld complete, and I managed to get that about 35 thou undersize. So I've got plenty of room to play with. As you can see, I've had to take a little bit off this in order to get it past the root of the weld. So it has got a bit of free play, but that's not a worry for me because I think I can put that in centre. So the idea is I'm going to support that with the tailstock. I've got the block square in the back, a little bit of free play under the brackets, and I'm going to start with a tack on this first corner. Then I'm going to square it up that way, and then I'm going to square it up this way, and I'll replace it with this, which is my newfangled line boring bar, and I'm going to rotate it in that way. What we've got here is a stack of gauges reaching from this flat surface here, which in theory is 5.5 inches below the centre line. So I've just done a bit of maths to work out where that tool should be in relation to this flat surface, and I'm using some gauge blocks that I've stacked up to the height of 4.0834. So there's a 3 inch, a 0.950 and a 0.134. So together they represent the finishing cut to get me 2 thou underneath the bearing size. So I've had a really good clean up. I've had my tea. Let's do this. Oh, who'd have thunk it, eh? I'm just going to spend a little bit of time off camera, as you can imagine, double checking all this. It's good fun though, isn't it? You know, look what you can do. Look what you can do. Incidentally, while we're on the subject of gauge blocks, these things are beautiful. If you push them together, they've got to be absolutely spotlessly clean. You can press the air out from between them and they magically stick together because the air pressure all around them is much greater than the air pressure in between them. So it's a lovely thing. It's only a very gentle force. I love that. Anyway, just thought that'd be an interesting little thing to show you while we're on the subject. .833. Perfect. I'm done. Well, I've put the gearbox back together secretly and without filming it. I did it in the vise, and it all went beautifully well. So you're going to see that in this video, or some of it. I couldn't bear to film it. I couldn't bear to film it. Anyway, so the decision to not film it and the decision to do it in the vise was all to do with making sure that I no longer feel I have to use the four-sprung duck technique to get a bearing in. This machine has been permanently consigned to making cider.
Live our bucket list, shooting from the hip, then we're right out here. But you make me feel like I don't wanna be alone.